We are live with today's N10-009. That is the Network Plus study group. We're in our pre-show right now. We got about 9 minutes before we get started. I'm still getting cables together. The recordings are done. I just finished the podcast intro. You missed that part. It was gripping. You'll have to tune into the podcast to hear the intro yourself. We're checking screens here. We've got the chat room up. Hey, chat room. It's good to see you. We've got folks checking in. I guess I could give you the lower third here that shows that you can join us today, answer questions, and do all of those things right there at that screen, at that link, professormesser.com/QA. Okay, things apparently are working and alive, and there. Chat room's checking in. Good to see everyone. Thanks for being here. We've got all new questions for you in this first hour. So go to that link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Right now, you will see the map of the world where you can put your digital pin into our virtual pin cushion there. And then you've got that same screen, that same URL. You just stay on that page, and all of the questions will come along from there. So there is quite a bit to go through today. We have all of those questions in the first hour. And then in the second hour, I will take your questions, which you can submit at any time using that same link, using the same link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. And that is, that's how easy it is. That's what we do here. We do one of these study groups for Network Plus every month. Already this month, we've done 2 A+ study groups. This is our Network Plus study group for the month. And then next week is our Security Plus study group. Had to think about it there for a moment. It's exactly what it is. Folks checking in from St. Vincent, wondering if that's our good friend Malk, who's on a different name, or is that more people? I'm huge in St. Vincent, so of course, you know, we got everybody watching from the islands. You never know, though. You never know where people are checking in from. It's so great to have people all over the world checking in. You can kind of see that view on the map. Maybe we could bring the map up and show it to you. We've got a lot to go through and work through there. People are checking in from all over the place. We've got Poland and Minneapolis and St. Vincent. I'm sure Wyoming is here. Oh, I need to get back out to Wyoming. I was just talking with the Mrs. Professor Messer about going back out there, spending some time hanging out in that beautiful area, the clean air, just hanging out, just watching the world go by. I was watching a very interesting video describing the rock formations. The video I was watching was specifically at Mammoth Springs, and they were going through all the different striations in the rock. And here's what happened here in the rock, why it's that color. And then a million years later, we had this in the rock, why it's that color. Just fascinating, just amazing. So that would be fun to do as well. There's a lot going on out there. So there's my commercial for Wyoming. If anybody wants to go, Yellowstone's a great place to go. And it is just amazing there. Thank you for checking in, Germany. We got folks in New York. Hello, New Yorkers. Good to have you here. I like the chat room. It says, I don't know what this is. What is this? What are you doing here? Stick around. This is our pre-show. In about 5.5 minutes, we'll be starting the actual show, actual study group, where I will be asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and then you interactively can answer those questions online. We bring up all of the different settings. We see what options you chose for A and B and C. We get the whole polling done. We submit our poll answers, and then we can see how everything went on the screen. So you get to kind of see if you know the answer, if other people know the answer. It's kind of fun. And then in the second hour, I answer your questions. So you're stuck answering my questions for the first hour, but then in the second hour, we do that as well. Other folks checking in, thanks for being here from Oregon, from Nigeria. We got folks that are all over the place. And of course, on our map, we just got people everywhere. Here's a close-up of the screen I'm looking at. So we got folks all over the United States and Canada checking in. There's some Floridians down there. Can't tell if you're in Naples or Miami, or it's hard to tell, isn't it? It's hard to just push the right button. Or maybe you're in the middle of the Everglades. Maybe that's where you are, which is fine too. Okay, we got a lot that we have got to do today. Now, I wrote these questions, I think, 2 weeks ago, which means I don't remember any of them, but I did go through and make sure that they were in the right order and that I had everything set up. So I know they're there. I have faith that the questions will be available to us. What the questions are, I don't know. We're going to find out. That's just how it's going to go. The next thing that we get to do is to go through the Q&A. So make sure you head over to that URL, open up a new browser window, and head over to professormesser.com/QA. Some other folks checking in from Atlanta. North Carolina is here. I don't know if you're in the Raleigh or the Charlotte or any of those areas. We got Cincinnati here. We have Atlanta, more Atlanta, lots of Atlanta. Is it the same Atlanta many times, or is it just many Atlanteans? We'll have to find out. Is it Atlanteans? I don't know that that's true. But we thank you for being here nonetheless. I used to go up to Atlanta every week because I was a systems engineer, and that's where the customers were. And I would go every week to the Atlanta area to at least talk to somebody, stop by Coca-Cola, see what's going on there, see what they're doing over on the north side of town. Spend a lot of time up Midtown, spend a lot of time in downtown. There's plenty to do in Atlanta and plenty of people to see. So lots going on there. We are 2.5 minutes away from getting started. This is not, you looking at the back of my head, as attractive as that is not the study group. So this is really just me making sure that all of these things are in place. Oh, I rode the MARTA lots. I was solid on the MARTA. We get to the airport, hop on the MARTA, head downtown, get off wherever we're going to see whoever it happens to be in that downtown area, and then we're off to the next one. Always had such a good time there. It was a great town to hang out in. Do I feel like an IT technician job would be a good entry job in IT? I do. My first, I guess, real IT job was as a field service technician. So there you go. Miami Gardens checking in right off the 826, right off Lejeune, right off 67th Street, 67th Avenue, I guess it was. We've got plenty of questions in this first hour, and then I rely on you to give me questions for the second hour. So that same link on the screen is for me asking you questions, but there's a little tab at the top of the screen, and you can flip over there and ask a question as well, because I will be going through those questions after we are done with our first hour, which is always fun. I never know what's going to show up. Never know what's going to be there. I was a field service technician. I would drive all over South Florida, mainly Dade, Broward, Palm Beach counties, and just I was doing like menial type, deliver a printer, plug in a cable, upgraded hard drive, install additional memory, that type of thing. And that led me into a kind of a corporate help desk job. So I didn't have to drive around all the time. And that led me into more of a workstation administration, and then server administration, and ultimately network administration, which I really loved. The networking part was amazing. I really, really dove right into that. And that, knowing that knowledge of what happens on the network, led me into the cybersecurity side. So it's always a path. Everybody has a different path that they take. That just happened to be in a very short description. That was the path I took. There were a few twists and turns in between, obviously, and a number of things that happened after that, including this. So you never know. Yeah, I mean, look, you never know where this is going to take you. That's the beauty of this. We all start somewhere. Look at that top of the hour. We know what that means, doesn't it? It means that I need to bring this a little bit closer so I can click the keynote button so that I can get a green light. Do we have a green light? Do we have, if I click it properly, we do. We click our green button there. This is set up. You're set up. It's time for a live stream, isn't it? I think it is. Let's see if I can remember how any of this works. We're going to get this going right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2026 Professor Messer N10-009 Network Plus Study Group. This is the study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. We get to see just how well you happen to know all of the information contained within those Network Plus exam objectives. We have a lot to go through today. I have all, of course, brand new questions for you. And if you are here live, you can participate interactively as I ask these questions of you, which is kind of fun. If you're not here live, do not worry. You can still follow along and keep track of everything else. And of course, compare your answer when you see the one that everyone else is doing. The way that you can participate is to go to this screen right here, this URL that's on my screen right here, rather, professormesser.com/QA. That is the link that will get you to the correct location. That will get you to exactly the information you need to be able to answer these questions. So I always have what I call a rewind question at the beginning of the study group that comes from a previous study group. So this is the only time you're going to see any repeats. And that's so that we can test this out and see if that link is working properly. Now, if you go to professormesser.com/QA, you'll see a question waiting for you that says what we have on the screen here. Before I give you the question, let me give you the rules. The rules for today are relatively simple. The question needs to be answered using the link that is on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please don't put any answers into the chat room. Don't put any hints into the chat room. We're going to pretend that we are taking the exam and we're plugging in our answer right in front of us. Our question today asks, a network technician connects a workstation to a switch port. Despite both devices being powered on, which configuration is the most likely cause of this issue? Is it that the Ethernet speed is set to 1 gigabit on one side and 100 megabit on the other? Is it that the MTU is configured for 9,000 bytes but on the switch only? Is it that the LCAP, LCAP, not in fact, I kept the problem with my abbreviations and my acronyms continued into this month. So you'll have to figure out if that's the right answer or not. Is disabled on the workstation interface. Workstation IP address is on a different subnet than the switch management interface, or duplex is set to full on the switch and half on the workstation. Which one of these is it? Which one could it possibly be? Well, we'll have to figure that part out, and we will come back to this question in just a moment to see how you did. Make sure to lock in your answer by going to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Thank you so much for being here in our live stream. We really could not do this without you, but when we're not here live and online, you can find us sort of live and online. We're, of course, in other places. Our entire Network Plus course is available for you to watch at any time from our YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube, along with our A+, our Network Plus, and any other videos that we happen to create. You should subscribe if you haven't already. That would be great. Don't forget that we have a weekly Network Plus pop quiz question that is available on our X account at professormesser.com/X. You can also find it on Instagram at professormesser.com/Instagram, and we stick it on LinkedIn as well. And following that same theme, it is on professormesser.com/LinkedIn. Also let you know that all the questions and everything we're going through today are from the latest version of the Network Plus exam. That is why I'm always referring to the N10-009. That is the version of this exam. If they were to update this exam in the future someday, you will see that that number will change. So always check and make sure that all of your study materials have that number associated with them. This is a version of the Network Plus exam that was released on June the 20th of 2024, which means this will probably still be around until the fourth quarter of 2027. The exam itself is a single exam that you have to pass. That makes it relatively easy. You get 90 minutes to go through the entire exam, and you could get a maximum of 90 questions. They could give you fewer than 90 questions, and I think most people do get fewer than 90, but they could still ask you 90 questions. That could happen. The exam score that you are looking for is graded on a scale from 100 to 900, and the score that you're hoping to find is a 720. As long as you make a 720 and more, higher than that number, then you are certified with your Network Plus certification. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. It also consists of a handful of performance-based questions. We will explain more about performance-based questions in a bit and talk more about the style and scope. In fact, we'll have a performance-based question for you today, so stick around for that. Don't forget that we have even more study materials available on our website. If you're looking for course notes, you're looking for a downloadable version of the videos, maybe you'd like everything in an audio form, those are available on our website as well. You can find those at professormesser.com/netsuccess. We also have this live event available for replay along with all of our archives. So you can go back to every month and watch. We have all new questions every month. So you can go to every month and learn a little bit more every time you read or watch through the replay. Also let you know that we also create a replay in a podcast format. It's an audio-only podcast format. You can find that on professormesser.com/podcast. It's an easy way to add to your favorite podcast listening program. If you are in a streaming audio service that you like to use, maybe you're over on Spotify, for example, simply search for Professor Messer. The podcasts are already there. You don't even have to do anything else. You click play and you can hear the latest version along with all of those archives. And you'll also notice that on our YouTube video description, you'll notice that about a day after we're done, almost magically timestamps will appear that will take you exactly to questions and answers that we are covering during this event. This is not some type of ridiculous AI that gets everything wrong. A real person does this, so you know it's going to be accurate. Thanks to my marketing manager, Lori. Hi, Lori. She's listening to this probably at 2x speed and putting down all of those timestamps to ensure that we give you the most accurate information that you can use for your Network Plus exam. Also let you know that when we're not here doing a live stream, I'm over on our Discord where thousands and thousands of you have joined. Thank you so much. We love having you there. And of course, you can use that to study for your A+, your Network Plus, your Security Plus certifications. We have on-demand areas where you can go and start your own room so you can test or study at least with people that you've met. And you can set up your room and manage your room and control it. And when you leave the room magically disappears. What could be easier than that? So you don't have to wait for a room to appear. You don't have to wait for one to be available. Just make one yourself and you're studying for your exam. You can join us there. Go to professormesser.com/discord. I'll also remind you that eventually you will need to take your Network Plus exam. And when you are ready to take your exam, you will need to pay for the exam. I guess that's one of the downsides of taking an exam is there is a cost associated, but we want to make that cost a little bit better for you. So you could, of course, go out to the CompTIA website and pay full price for your vouchers. But if you're in the U.S., Canada, or a U.S. territory, you can get these vouchers at a discount by going to professormesser.com/vouchers. Exactly the same voucher. These, as a CompTIA authorized partner, we're a platinum partner with CompTIA. You can be assured that you are getting exactly the same voucher that's available on the CompTIA website, but you're paying less. You also get a little bonus if you buy a voucher from our website. I give you a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is an ebook you cannot buy. It is only available with the purchase of a Success Bundle or the purchase of a voucher. Inside of our Exam Hacks ebook, I've listed out all of the tips and tricks that I use during the study process and tips and tricks that I use during the exam itself that I think can give you a few extra points. So you can learn more about this by going to our website, professormesser.com/vouchers, to save a little bit of money on those vouchers. Every little bit is going to help. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier. That question asked, a network technician connects a workstation to a switch port. Despite both devices being powered on, the physical light remains unlit. Which configuration is the most likely cause of this issue? Is it that the Ethernet speed is set to 1 gigabit on one side and 100 megabit on the other? Is it that the MTU is configured for 9,000 bytes but on the switch only? Is it that LCAP, we're going to go with that, is disabled on the workstation interface? Is it that the workstation IP address is on a different subnet than the switch management interface? Or is it that duplex is set to full on the switch and half on the workstation? Well, we got 4 options to go by, right? We can make that happen. Let's see what you chose. We're going to close our poll, and we got a rainbow. This is almost exactly what we got last month, by the way, was a big rainbow of this. Our challenge, of course, was that the physical light on the Ethernet interface is not on, which means we have no signal going across that line whatsoever. So which one of these can really cause that type of problem. And this is the challenge that we're trying to figure out. Whenever we're working on a switch configuration, an interface configuration, anything dealing with Ethernet, then we need to think about where we are going to see this issue of, are we at least up and running a little bit and some traffic is going through, or are we not getting a physical link light at all? So let's go through these answers really quick to see what we think they might be. You can see that 31%, that was our highest number, said the Ethernet speed is set to 1 gigabit on one side, 100 megabit on the other. Then we have kind of a three-way tie for second place. I realize there's a little bit of a gap between these. 27% said workstation IP addresses on a different subnet than the switch management interface. 22% said that duplex is set to full on the switch and half on the workstation. And 19% said LACP, which is really what it should say, is disabled on the workstation interface. That would be the link aggregation control protocol, not LCAP, whatever that is. So that is me flipping letters around where I should not be flipping letters around. Certainly a common configuration. Link aggregation is used on many switches, but in this case, that has nothing to do with a physical link light not turning on, getting no signal. And only 2% said an MTU is configured for 9,000 bytes on the switch only. And you're right with that one. 98% of you were right with that one, because having a different MTU, this is a maximum transmission unit size, is something you would configure really on both sides of the link, and it needs to match, especially if you're doing jumbo frames. And if you're sending 9,000 bytes, that's certainly a jumbo frame. Anything over 1,500 bytes is identified as a jumbo frame. So that's another thing that we can think about when we're working through this. The link light would be up if we had configured the MTU differently on both sides. So we know that's not the problem. Only 2% of you chose that one. So I think you knew that wasn't the problem either. LACP, disabled on the workstation interface, that is usually a connection that is a switch-to-switch connection. So it's actually normal for LACP not to be enabled on the workstation interface. So that's not our issue either. 22% of you said duplex is set to full on the switch and half on the workstation. And although that is a mismatch, it would not prevent the link from coming up and allowing you to see a link light. What it would do is create a performance issue. You would notice when you start sending a lot of traffic over that link that it's not performing very well. They're getting slower throughput than would be expected. And that is exactly what you would expect to see if there was a duplex mismatch. But you would still see a link light. There would still be data transferred. 27% said a workstation IP address is on a different subnet. Well, that's up at the layer 3 level, isn't it? That's when an IP address, a subnet mask, default gateway, you can get those completely wrong and still have a link light. Now, you probably won't be able to communicate to anyone else on the network or a limited number of devices on the network, but you'd still have a link light, which leaves the last one we haven't covered, which is the Ethernet speed is set to 1 gigabit on one side and 100 megabit on the other. That is a speed difference between the two. And when you have a speed mismatch between two devices, they will not communicate at all. You will not get a link light. You will get zero signal, and there will be no communication on the link. So for this particular answer, the answer is that top one there, is that the Ethernet speed is set to 1 gigabit on one side and 100 megabit on the other. And if you chose that one, you got the answer absolutely correct. Well done. Well, that was our rewind question of the month. You folks did fine with finding it, with answering the question. And although 31% of you, only 31% of you got that one right, the good part is that all of you got to step through this question. So if it is presented to you again, you will have a very good idea of which one of these it could possibly be. Let's now move a little bit, shift our gears just a bit to do a performance-based question. And a lot of you have been sending me notes and saying, we would like a performance-based question that is a little more involved, that allows, really we're stepping through and doing a little more thinking with this one. So hopefully I created something for you that you can appreciate. This performance-based question is one that is on firewalls. And one of the things that I'll mention, of course, if you've never taken one of these exams before, the definition of a performance-based question is anything that is not multiple choice. So in the world, in the big Venn diagram of everything that could be a question, the small circle that's within a circle is multiple choice, and then anything else is going to be a performance-based question. So this could be a fill in the blank. It could be a multiple choice. It could be a question that is asking you to put things in a particular order. It could be a drag and drop question. And this is done interactively on your device. So you can kind of move things around the screen. Now, obviously, we don't have a screen here to do that with. That's not going to help us at all when we're trying to work through this. So one of the things that you might want to do is to think of using this question as a guideline. And one of the other things I'll also mention to you is performance-based questions are simply another way to ask you about the information that you already know. As I've often said, if you know the exam objectives, it really doesn't matter how they ask the question, you're going to know the answer. So let's step through our performance-based question of the month. I don't know why I have this on a build, but there it is. I have a stateful firewall rule set in front of you. The stateful firewall rule set also includes, as I mentioned here, an implicit deny. So there's also allows and denies in this rule set as well. I'm not going to go into detail about all of these different rules because we will be going through these when we look at the answer to this rule set. But this implicit deny and all of the rules that are in here are an important part of the questions that I would like you to answer. And the question that I have for you is I want to take that rule set, that's our same rule set up here in the upper left, and I am looking at network traffic that is going through the firewall. You can think of this as a series of logs that we are looking at. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different data sessions that are passing through this firewall. And these different sessions have IP addresses for the source, IP addresses for the destination, tells you the protocol that is being used. It tells whether it's TCP or UDP or does not apply. And then we've got port numbers associated with those. And then lastly, these 2 columns are the ones I'd like you to fill in. I want you to tell me what the action is for that particular rule, which means what is the result of that? Are we going to allow that traffic or are we going to block that traffic? And if we do allow or block that traffic, what rule number is associated with that action that you've chosen? So this is what we do when we're managing firewalls, when we're working through firewalls, or really just trying to understand how traffic flows across the network. So I want you to step through each one of these. So the first one is 10.10.10.50 with the destination of 8.8.8.8 using a protocol of TCP and a port number 443. Would that traffic pass through the firewall and be forwarded, or would that traffic be blocked by the firewall? That's what we're looking for. And if it is allowed or blocked, how do you know that? Which rule is associated with that particular traffic being allowed or blocked? So I have those different scenarios. How many do we have there? We have 5 different traffic flows. And that's the ones that I would like you to be able to tell me what they happen to be. I'm going to step away from this screen for a moment while you ponder that. If you think you know the answer to this one, go to it's hard to put the link on the screen because I'm hiding things. The link you want to go to answer this is at professormesser.com/QA. Please do not put any answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Let me step away for a moment. Okay. And we're back. So one of the things that I like about this one is that it does make you think, and it makes you try to get a better understanding of how firewalls operate. I don't want to give too much away when we're talking about the operation of firewalls, but this is a very good place to go to get an understanding of how to track where traffic goes. If you're ever in a position where you're managing firewalls, and I did this for years, one of the things that you'll be doing very often is looking at a firewall rule base and then trying to determine, are we blocking that traffic and how are we blocking that traffic? Now, fortunately, many firewalls have a comprehensive log that will tell you the traffic came through, here's where it came through, here's where it went, here's the disposition, we allowed it, we blocked it, whatever happened. But here I'm having you do this. Instead, let's say that there's no logging on this firewall. It's the worst firewall ever because there are no logs available. So I want you to tell me what these happen to be. Number of you getting your answers in already. If you don't know, that's okay. We're going to go through this in detail to break down how the firewall would operate, how we would understand the particular rule, and how that rule applies to the actual network traffic that's going through the firewall. This is also a great place where you can start to see that the way that you put rules into a firewall can definitely affect how traffic flows through the firewall. There is a reason and a method to all of these rules that we're putting through here. So I don't want to give too much away. So I want you to submit your answers. You can, of course, do that at any time using our URL, professormesser.com/QA. That's where you want to submit your answer and see what what you think it happens to be. We're going to step through each one of these. In fact, why don't we begin with our very first rule in the firewall? We're going to take that list of tuples, the source, the destination, the protocol port, the port, and the action. And we are going to kind of break these down a little bit along with the rule number that we need to find. So the first, really, let's look at that first rule that we have here, and to kind of gave those two away in the build, but I want to pull that back just so we can easily see and break this down. 10.10.10.50 was our source, and the destination is 8.8.8.8. So the way that most firewalls will operate is you'll start at the top of the firewall rule base, and you'll start to see if the rules are matching the information that we have in that traffic flow. So our first rule is from the internal LAN 10.10.10.0/24. So anything that starts with 10.10.10.10 as a source would match rule 1. Well, that first tuple of source does match that. The destination in that rule is any, and our destination, of course, is going somewhere. That applies. Any is kind of a wild card. Anything can be put into that mix. It also, in that first rule, the protocol is TCP. Our protocol is TCP. Very nice. And the last tuple is port 80. Our port is port 443. So because that one tuple, that one variable, that one piece of information didn't match, rule 1 doesn't match. So we can discard rule 1 as even applying. Then we go to the next rule in our firewall, which is a very similar rule. It's the same 10.10.10.0/24 as the source, the same any as the destination, the same protocol TCP, but it has a different port number, the port number 443. Hey, in this case, that matches exactly. So the disposition in the firewall rule is to allow that traffic, which means that this would also be allowed. And since we are on rule number 2, I can say that the reason we are allowing it is because it matches the rule listed in our firewall as rule number 2. Whew, that is how you interpret a traffic flow, and you bring anything through to be able to understand how traffic flows based on the rules that are in the firewall. Let's do another one. The next one on our list is 10.10.10.50. Hey, that's similar to the one we just did, so we're already kind of familiar with this. The destination, again, 8.8.8.8. Again, it is TCP, but the port number is 22. So we've already done port 1. We know that, or rule number 1, we already know that port 80 was associated with that, so that doesn't match the first rule. Our second rule used the same variables with a different port of TCP 443. That is not TCP 443. That's TCP 22. And then we have a number of different options here. Oh, there's another 10.10.10.0/24 on rule number 3, but the destination is not any. The destination is 10.10.20.10. Well, that doesn't match our destination here, so rule 3 doesn't match. Let's then go to rule 4, 10.10.10.0/24. That matches, but the destination, again, does not match. It's 172.16.100.25, so that doesn't match. Let's go to the next one. Firewall rule number 5 has a different source IP address, so we know that one does not match. And rule number 6 is the same problem. That also has a different IP address. It doesn't match. We got all the way through the firewall, and no rule matched any of this information. Well, as you remember in our first description of this firewall rule base, it was an implied deny. This is a very common configuration for firewalls. Not all firewalls use an implied deny, but the good ones do. An implied deny means that if it doesn't match a rule that we have put into the firewall, it's not getting through. So it's kind of a fail-safe, if you want to think of it that way. If you accidentally didn't put in a rule to block something, it's going to be blocked anyway, as long as it is not previously allowed in an earlier rule. So in this case, that's exactly what happens here. It is denied. But why is it denied? It's denied because it is implicitly denied. There's not an actual rule explicitly denying it. Therefore, it is implicitly denied. I didn't think you were going to get an English lesson today, did you? Well, there's your English lesson for today. And there's the extent of my English knowledge as well. So is it a coincidence? I think not. Let's do another rule. Our source here is a different source. It is 192.168.50.75. We know that the first 4 rules are to a source of 10.10.10.10, so we can automatically discard them. We're already getting familiar with our rule base here. 192.168.50.75, however, does match the sources for Rule 5 and for Rule 6, so maybe we'll interpret both of those at the same time. Our destination for this rule is 10.10.10.20. You can see on this guest network that we have, boy, there's a lot here listed. We have an any destination, 192.168.50.0 to any, that would match. We also have 192.168.50.0 to 10.10.10.10.10.10.10.10.0. That internal network does match, so actually matches both of those. So far, we haven't really narrowed this down. The port and protocol for the traffic flow is TCP. That also matches both of these rules because TCP is listed on rule number 5 and any is listed on rule number 6. And then the port that we were looking for is 445. Well, the one that is rule number 5 lists port 80 and 443. So we got all the way to that last column or next to last column, and you can see that 80 and 443 do not match port 445 that is in this rule, but it does match rule number 6. So 192.168.50.0 going to 10.10.10.0/24, any protocol and any port. And if that matches, and in this case it does, then it is denied. And it is denied because we are in rule number 6. That is the rule that denied that particular traffic flow. Let's do another one. We got 2 more to go. The next one is 192.168.50.75. So far, it does match those first 4 rules of the firewall. But what's the destination? The destination is 142.250.191.46. Ooh, I don't even know what that is. But it is one that would match the first 2 rules, because you can see Rule 3 and Rule 4 are to a specific IP address in that particular case, and those would not apply. But if we're looking at our first rule, which is the one we interpret first, so far it matches rule number 1. What is the port? TCP. Well, our port here, also TCP. We're still matching port number 1, and our last number is port 443. Oh, it does not match our rule number 1 because port 80 is in rule number 1. But look at our rule number 2. So even though we do have this rule number 2 with the information that's there, and it's this weird IP address, we have any in that rule. So TCP 443, that also matches, which means it would be allowed because we got to rule number 2 and everything there is allowed. That rule number 2 coming in strong one more time. Next one or last one, which is both. We have both the next one and the last one in this one. Oh, the question in the chat room, hey, would that match rule number 5 though? Well, our source is certainly the same. Our destination is the same, but we didn't get that far on our list. Did I do rule number 5 in that one? I did. So rule number 5 works perfect for that one. Did I say 2? We did number 5. 192.168.50.75. Our last one on this list, as we're going through this, is 192.168.50.75 as the source. We have, of course, doesn't match rule 1, doesn't match rule 2, doesn't match rule 3, doesn't match rule 4. So far, it's matching rule 5. The destination is any. In our traffic, it is 172.16.100.25. That certainly matches any. So that still is matching rule number 5. Let's see if the port and protocol matches. TCP, it does. So far, rule number 5 is working fine in that list. And then lastly, port 25. Well, that's where the port number 5 does not match because rule number 5 is port 80 and port 443. So that means we can go to our next rule, which so far is matching the source, it's matching the destination, it's matching the protocol, and because it's any, it also matches the port number. And if you are going through that list, you could see deny is the one we were looking for, and it is implicit. So there is our list of traffics. 10.10.10.50 to a destination of 8.8.8.8 is a TCP port 443, and it is allowed based on port 2. 10.10.10.50 to 8.8.8.8 TCP 22, however, not even listed in our firewall anywhere, and you can see the action was denied implicit. 192.168.50.75 and going to 10.10.10.20 over TCP 445 is also not listed in our firewall. It is denied based on rule number 6. Actually, it is listed in our firewall because that's any to any. So denied based on rule number 6. The one that I misspoke earlier, 192.168.50.75, is not matched on rule 1, rule 2, rule 3, or rule 4. It matches rule 5, but it matches rule 5 on the destination as well, which is our 142.250, 191.46, TCP 443, that is listed as TCP 443, and you can see that one is allowed. So hopefully I have redeemed myself. There's a lot of moving parts here on a live stream. So hopefully we backed that one up and got it absolutely correct. And then lastly, our network configuration, our source of 192.168.50.75 going to 172.16.100.25 over TCP 25 is also not listed in this firewall. So it would be denied, and it would be an implicit deny. So there you go. Hopefully you did a better job with the description of all of these than I did, but I think we figured it out in the end, didn't we? Thank you, chat room. Chat room's always there to get my back. So there is, I think, a good process to go through. If you've never stepped through a firewall and looked at the rules and then tried to figure out how does the firewall make its decisions, this is a very common way for firewalls to do this. Now, some firewalls don't have an implicit deny. So some of these things that I say the deny was implicit, if this was a firewall that did not have an implicit deny, that second network flow would go through because it's not blocked implicitly. And then you can see the last one would go through as well because it is not blocked implicitly. I don't know why you would have a firewall like that. I guess there is a use case somewhere, but it's not something that is commonly seen on our large-scale firewall platforms. Almost all the large-scale firewall platforms have an implicit deny. So if you're ever in a situation where you're managing a firewall, that's one of the first things you should find out. Does this firewall have an implicit deny, or do I have to put an explicit rule at the very bottom blocking everything that doesn't fit into this rule base? That's a decision you'll have to make as your firewall administrator, and it is an important one that changes completely how you interpret the rules that are in this list. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed that performance-based question of the month. This is not an unusual style of question to get on an actual exam, but as you can see here, everything that you learned about rules and the firewall are simply applied multiple times as part of this question. So this is something to think about and interpret, understand how to interpret, because a question like this could appear in your exam not only as a multiple choice question, it could be as a multiple choice or as performance-based question. It could be a multiple choice question as well, because I could ask you, if a firewall, here's a firewall rule base, and you have a source of this and this and this and this, would it be allowed or not? And then you would have multiple answers to choose from. So you can see a performance-based question is almost like multiple choice questions. Is that such a thing? Multiple choice? I think you know what I mean. So we certainly have an idea of how to approach these. The one thing I want to tell you about performance-based questions, though, is don't get worried about the style of the question or how it will be asked, because it could be asked in an infinite number of ways. As long as you know the content, as long as you know the material from your exam objectives, you will be able to answer these questions. So hopefully this has given you a little taste of that, a little understanding that it's not insurmountable. We just need to learn the content, and all of this should come pretty easily. Let's now jump back to a multiple choice set of questions on this list. Well, by the way, there was a question about this performance-based question, because some of these you could get right and some of these you could get wrong. CompTIA has provided us with a frequently asked questions file for performance-based questions on their website, where they have documented that you could get partial credit on a question like this. They also say that you might not get partial credit on a question like this. So they have given us an answer that tells us nothing, really. We could or we couldn't. I would like to believe on a question like this, you do get partial credit. So let's hope that that's the case. We can work through the details of that and hope at least that we get partial. When you get your exam results, though, there's no way to tell if you get partial credit or not. So this is one of those mysteries of the universe that we will never solve. And you're just going to have to live with that. Let's do a multiple choice question. Here it is. It's a question that asks, a network switch is receiving frames and must determine which port to use to reach the destination device. Which layer of the OSI model is associated with this task? Is it layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, or layer 7? Which is pretty much the ones that we focus on in the OSI model. A network switch is receiving frames and must determine which port to use to reach the destination device. Which layer of the OSI model is associated with this task? And in this question, it's saying a network switch is receiving frames must determine which physical port to use to reach that particular destination device. And we know because we're talking about a switch. So that gives you at least some perspective into this. Is it layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 7? That's what we're talking about. It sometimes can be difficult, just speaking as someone who is who writes a lot of questions and creates a lot of content for Network Plus. Whenever I use the term port, I always try to say physical port. I did not in this question, so you can ding me on that one a little bit. That's my fault. But I am here talking about a network switch receiving frames and has to determine which physical port to use on the switch to reach that destination device. So thank you for allowing me the clarification. It is sort of implied in the question, but I hate questions that are implied. And quite honestly, the questions you get on your exam will be very clear on what they are asking for. I would say perhaps clearer than this particular question. But now that I've given you some context, perhaps that will help you a little bit when we're working through that. So people are saying, leaving an answer blank in a performance-based question is acceptable. Effectively, and the rule of thumb that we have always talked about, and the rule of thumb that we think applies across all of the CompTIA exams, is you should never leave an answer blank. You do not get points taken away from you for getting a question wrong, which means there's no penalty for guessing. And you get points if you get the question right. So if you do guess and get it correct, that's free points. So that's an important consideration. Never leave anything blank on your exam. Always make sure that you've filled in every possible thing that is there. Otherwise, you've missed an opportunity. There might be points just sitting there on the table that you are not taking down. This is a question a lot of you answered quickly. So I'm hoping that my somewhat interesting verbiage in this question did not throw you too much, especially that it gave you some context. So let's see how you did. The question asks, a network switch is receiving frames and must determine which physical port to use to reach the destination device. Which layer of the OSI model is associated with this task? Is it layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, or layer 7? Although I will say, in my defense, you should read that first question and already know which port I'm referring to based on the context of the question. I shouldn't have to tell you physical port, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So what did you answer? First, stop talking. Let's figure out what the answer was. We're going to close our poll. 58% of you, a good number of you, a majority of you say the answer is layer 2. We have 18% that said layer 4, 18% said layer 3, a tie for second place. In last place, 6% say layer 1, although I guess technically last place is really layer 7 because it came in with 0%. Can you really put that in a place, though? I guess you could. So there's our last place is layer 7. Well, OSI is an interesting animal, isn't it? It is based on a protocol that we no longer use. That protocol is named OSI. And we created not only a protocol to use across our network called OSI, but we created this model that fits perfectly with that protocol. If we're not using OSI, what are we using? We're using TCP/IP. And there's actually a TCP/IP model. Do we use that TCP/IP model? We do not. Nobody ever uses it. The only time you'll ever see it is in a networking book. The only time you'll ever reference it is in a networking scenario like this. And quite honestly, it's good that CompTIA does not have the TCP/IP model in their exam objectives because we simply don't use it. For some reason, for many reasons, we use OSI to describe data flow, but we actually use many different types of protocols, including TCP/IP, to actually transfer data. Fortunately, the OSI model kind of fits pretty well. And the answer that most of you gave was layer 2. That is the answer that we were looking for, OSI layer 2. This is the data link layer of the OSI model. And the data link layer has a lot of information dealing with physical address connectivity. When you look at an Ethernet network, this layer of layer 2, data link layer, not the physical layer, the data link layer, layer 2 is talking about the MAC address, media access control. We could almost call it the MAC address layer, except in other topologies, there might not be MAC addresses. For example, we can go back in the day. We don't see a lot of these anymore, but you can still configure them on your routers. You can create point-to-point networks running over serial lines. Those point-to-point networks have one device on one end of the network and one device on the other. There's only two devices connected on that network. How do you number them? Do you number them primary and secondary? Do you number them 1 and 2? You do not. You refer to them as a data terminal equipment, DTE, and a data computing equipment, data communications equipment, pardon me, and that is DCE. So the communications equipment and the terminal equipment talk to each other there. So it doesn't have a MAC address. It has a DTE or a DCE. Still layer 2, still data link. But in the case of Ethernet, the one that we most often see, we're talking about the data link layer. And this is the layer that switches use to determine where traffic happens to be. And when we start looking at a switch, the switch is examining the MAC address, and it doesn't care about anything else that's in the frame. It only cares about the MAC address. So the MAC address information that we have here is a good example of this. There's an Ethernet card on this side with one MAC address and an Ethernet card across the network with a different MAC address. They're communicating to each other, probably through a switch that we don't see in this diagram. There's probably a switch in the middle, and that switch configuration is making its forwarding decisions based on the destination MAC address or OSI layer 2 address of that communication. So for those of you that answered OSI layer 2, you got it absolutely correct. That was the number that we were looking for. So hopefully if you don't know your OSI, hopefully you've given some ideas on where you might want to work on OSI content. The OSI model is an important one for your exam. It's certainly in the CompTIA exam objectives. If you want to learn more about it, you go to our video. The video is numbered 1.1, which of course matches the number of the official exam objectives. And the name of the video is Understanding the OSI Model. You did very well with that one. 58% of you got that one absolutely correct. We've only gone through a few questions now, and you can see there is a lot involved in the Network Plus exam. Tons of exam objectives, a lot of content that you have to learn. And sometimes people get almost overwhelmed at the amount of content. But do not worry, we break it down for you into little chunks in our video course. But we also, because if you looked at our video course, 87 videos, that's a lot of videos to watch. And I realize that, but we do cover every single exam objective. It is a comprehensive course. There's over 12 hours of content. But once you've watched all the videos or all of the videos that you can, you might want a reference guide. And so I've taken everything from those videos and I've put them into a series of course notes. These course notes for Network Plus provide you with a table of contents so you can see all of the different videos we are covering in our course notes. And then I take all of the text, all of the graphics, all of the charts, all of the tables, and I put them into this document. This is a great one-stop shop to look at all of the information we covered in every single one of those videos. These course notes have been created to give you that second level of information all in one consolidated form. So it's not really to replace your book or to replace the videos. It's to work alongside them. In fact, you could go video by video along with the course notes as you're watching. So that might be something you might want to consider as well. It's also a great way to help support the things that we do on our website with our free A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus courses. If this is something you think that might help you with your studies, you might want to have a look. We've got more information on our site at professormesser.com/NPCN, or you can go to our website and go to the Network Plus pull down, that menu, and choose course notes from there. Another great way to support what we're doing. And for those of you that have already purchased the course notes, we thank you very much for your support. Let's do more questions, shall we? Next on our list is this one. This question asks, a network technician needs to troubleshoot a loss of connectivity originating from the internet service provider's entry point. Which of the following would be the best testing point for this connection? Would it be the horizontal cross-connect, an IDF patch panel, a fiber distribution panel, buried cable, or the main distribution frame? We've got a number of things to think about. All 5 of these things are real things. All 5 of these are taken from your exam objectives, but of course, there's only one answer in here that is correct. If you think you know the answer, please answer using the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. The question again asks, a network technician needs to troubleshoot a loss of connectivity originating from an internet service provider's entry point. Which of the following would be the best testing point for this connection? Would it be a horizontal cross-connect, an IDF patch panel, a fiber distribution panel, buried cable, or a main distribution frame? If you think you know the answer, lock in your answer right there at professormesser.com/QA. The Q stands for something. The A stands for something. We'll figure it out by the time we're done here. professormesser.com/QA. If you've ever worked in a big company, you probably have a lot of connections coming in from wide area network providers, internet providers, third parties, and there may be times when you need to do some testing where you're starting to look at problems on that link, you're concerned about that link. This is one of those where we really want to understand, where would we go? Physically in the building, where do we go to test this link? Where do we go to really understand? I don't want to give you too much information, where the problems may be occurring. I almost said a few things there, but we're going to try to make it a little bit harder than me just spoon feeding you information. We'll figure it out. See if you know the answer. Lock in your answer at any time by going to the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Let's see how we did with this one. Let's now, again, look at this question. A network technician needs to troubleshoot a loss of connectivity originating from the internet service provider's entry point. Which of the following would be the best testing point for this connection? Is it a horizontal cross-connect, IDF patch panel, fiber distribution panel, buried cable, or main distribution frame? What did you answer? Let's find out. 63% of you say the answer is a main distribution frame. That sounds made up. We'll talk about that. 17% of you say it's a fiber distribution panel. 16% said it's an IDF patch panel. 5% say it's buried cable. And again, I got a 0. 0 people say horizontal cross-connect, which I use a lot of horizontal cross-connects for this configuration. That would not be what we're looking for either. So what is the answer? If we go with the majority of you that say main distribution frame, then we would be absolutely correct. It is a main distribution frame. Well, what in the world do you mean? That those 3 words don't even sound right. Main distribution frame. This really is a term that goes back to the days of mainframe computers and the distribution of that information over our networks, the network of type that we had back then anyway. Today, the main distribution frame, you can kind of think as your primary data center, the main computing data facility for your building, for your campus, for whatever network and configuration you have set up. You might be on a multi-floor building. Somewhere on those multiple floors is a big room, maybe covered with glass, where everything is. It's the main distribution frame. And this is where we tend to bring all of our wide area network connections in, and it's a handoff point between the network provider and you. You have a box on the outside of your house, probably from your internet service provider, for your home provider. There's a little box on the side of your house that effectively is your main distribution frame, at least from the perspective of your internet provider, because that's where they hand off the signal. Everything inside your house is your responsibility most of the time. Everything outside of your house, obviously, would be the responsibility of the wide area network provider. And because this is the handoff point, it's a perfect test spot, because you don't want to go test somewhere else inside the building. Your problem might be in that link between what we call our demarcation point, the demarc. That's what that point is that the wide area network comes in on, is the demarc. There might be problems past the demarc, and the best way to make sure that you don't run into any of those types of issues is to test right at the demarc. So that's why if you have here's a main distribution frame, in fact, a lot of data in here, lots of rows of racks that are set up in this data center. They go back, way back there. Lots of rows. And they probably have on the back wall, the side wall, somewhere in this room is a place where they have said this is where the demarc is. So we go to that one spot in the room. That way you know where all the wide area network links come in. The wide area network providers know where all of the wide area network links come in. And it's a centralized place that we know we can go to perform any testing. Here's another picture of a main distribution frame. This one also goes back. You can't even see it because of the wall that's there. But that also has a lot here, and probably there is a central point in this room as well that has wide area network connections coming in. That is your main distribution frame. A horizontal cross connect is how we describe connecting from a device that is here and connect to a device that's here. It's like right next to each other. They're either in the same rack, maybe they're between racks, but we're effectively just cross-connecting from maybe a user's workstation into a switch. That is often referred to as a horizontal cross-connect. You're not going to another floor. You're not going to another room. You're doing everything within the same room. We have 5% of you that said buried cable. And although the internet service provider probably comes in on a buried connection, that is not where we will be doing testing. We are not expected to have a shovel and to go outside and to dig up the line and then somehow get some testing equipment on there, thankfully. 16% of you said an IDF patch panel. IDF, an intermediate distribution frame, is the other type of distribution frame. We already saw the main distribution frame, which is our data center. And intermediate distribution frame is where that data center connects to. So there's probably an IDF on this, maybe your data center's on the first floor. There's probably an IDF on the second floor, an IDF on the third floor, an IDF on the fourth floor, etc. And usually we connect all of our local devices to their local IDF, and then we have a single fiber link that goes down into the MDF. We do have some information on our video that describes that a little bit better than my waving hands in front of the screen, but you can learn more about that in video 2.4, installing networks. 17% of you said a fiber distribution panel. Well, even if the network was coming in via fiber, the place to do the testing is not in the distribution panel. It's in the direct link that is coming in on your network. There's probably a modem there, a CSU, DSU, some type of router. There's something that the service provider has brought in to terminate that connection. You always want to test at the termination point, not at a distribution panel, not at a patch panel, not somewhere else down the line. You want to do it right where that link comes into the building, because that's where your responsibility starts. And the answer that we were looking for, the main distribution frame, we now understand that's exactly where all of those connections come in. That's where we need to go. That's where you'll be putting on a jacket and spending a lot of time as you run a series of tests while you're on the phone with the internet service provider to find out why you don't have any connectivity. So if you answered that, 63% of you got that one absolutely correct. Well done. For those of you that are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you were here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. The way that you can earn that CEU is you just send me an email, but not any type of email. You have to do it a special way. Make sure you follow these instructions. You go to the top or the bottom of the ProfessorMesser.com website, and on the top and the bottom menus, you'll see a link for Contact Us. Click that Contact Us link. It will bring up a form. In that form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put June 2026 Network Plus. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, horizontal cross connect. We got 0%. I figure I had to use it, right? It's important. Horizontal cross connect is our super secret code words of the month. You can also put anything else in there that you would like. I read through every single one of these, and I enjoy the comments that you put in there. So thank you for sending those. But you don't have to put anything if you don't want to. Just click submit, and it will send it to me. It takes me about a week to turn these around and get an email back to you. But the email back to you is the certification that you were here for that 1-hour webinar category CEU, and it will be digitally signed. I have information in the email if you wanted to confirm that digital signature if you are not confirming it already. Again, to receive this email, go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us. In that Contact Us form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put June 2026 Network Plus. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, Horizontal Cross Connect. And I'll be sending those emails probably out, or I usually try to do it on the weekend. So this might happen the next few days. Get your messages in now, get your Contact Us links in now, and we'll see if we can get that to you as quickly as possible. We've got time for more Q&A, don't we? Let's fit another one into this mix. Here is our next question, and it asks on question 6, which I'm clicking on my side, a mobile device connects to a new network and immediately attempts to configure its own routable IPv6 address without querying a DHCP server. Which of the following best describes this process? Is this dynamic routing, proxy DHCP, Slack, or UEI-64 transformation? There's a lot going on there. So a mobile device connects to a new network and immediately attempts to configure its own routable IPv6 address without querying a DHCP server. Which of the following best describes this process? Is it an interesting only 4 in this list? Makes it even easier to guess, right? Dynamic routing, proxy DHCP, Slack, or UEI-64 transformation. See if you know the answer. If you do, I guess I should put up the link. There it is, professormesser.com/QA, where you could submit that answer and see if you know the answer. Oh, IPv6. IPv6 has been around for so long. I think back to IPv6 that we were using before Windows even became popular. We were doing things with IPv6. I hate to speak in those terms. Makes me sound like, well, back when we were using IPv6. It was a while ago, though. There were a number of years between then and now. Let's just be honest about the entire thing. But it was around back then. It really hasn't quite caught on, has it? It really has not had the overwhelming use that we were expecting. It is a slow growth of use of IPv6. Certainly all of our service providers are running IPv6 in their cores, along with IPv4. Certainly we see a lot of IPv6 being configured automatically in our modern operating systems, but very often I see that automatic configuration is going unused because our internet service providers are not using IPv6, and I'm technically not using IPv6 as the primary protocol on the Professor Messer website. So there are a number of things that you might have to think about when it comes to IPv6 because you might not be using it. But you will still run into pockets of this, and there are times when IPv6 is a much better solution than IPv4. So the use case is there, but do you ever use it? And if you don't, why aren't you? And if you do, why are you? So you have to think about those things. It doesn't have quite that groundswell of support quite yet. Let's see how well you did with this question, though. The question asks, a mobile device connects to a new network and immediately attempts to configure its own routable IPv6 address without even querying a DHCP server. Which of the following best describes this process? Is it dynamic routing, proxy DHCP, Slack, or UEI-64 transformation? And let's see what you chose. Here, I'm so excited to see the answer. I forgot that I could actually click the button to look at it. Here it is. 47% of you, not quite a majority, say the answer is Slack, S-L-A-A-C. That's how we pronounce SLAAC, apparently, which is Slack. 33%, a third of you, say the answer is dynamic routing, is what allows that. 15% of you say proxy DHCP is what we're doing there. And 5% of you said a UEI-64 transformation. So in this particular case, did I hit what the right answer is? Let's see the right answer. And there it is, Slack. 47% of you that chose Slack got that one absolutely right. Well, why is it Slack? What is this Slack we're talking about? That is an abbreviation, an acronym stands for Stateless Address Auto Configuration. One of the things that we wanted to do with IPv6 is to correct a lot of the shortcomings we had with IPv4. And I think you could probably argue that requiring a DHCP server on a network is certainly, it's not a disadvantage necessarily, but it adds another thing you have to have just to run an IPv4 network. What if you could set up a network and people could connect to the network and they could immediately start using the internet and there's no DHCP servers involved? Wouldn't that be awesome? Well, that's what one of the things that IPv6 brings to the table, and it uses a protocol known as Slack to be able to do that. IPv6 is very good at finding other devices on the network, especially routers, and it will perform a neighbor discovery to locate a router. It sends a router solicitation saying, hey, are there any routers out here? And the routers will respond back saying, oh yeah, here's a router advertisement for you. In case you were wondering, I'm on the network, here you go. And it will take the IPv6 subnet prefix and it will take an interface ID, put them all together to be able to create a complete IPv6 address, at which time we could even now start using the network. That is a routable address. There's no DHCP server. There's no broadcasts. There's no manual configurations. And yet we have a legitimate IPv6 address that we can now use to do anything we want to do on the network or even outside of our local networks, because that is a routable address. Notice that is a combination of an EUI64 address in some cases, although that address may be determined in other ways, along with the subnet prefix for your local network. I think this complexity, you'll notice just looking at that address, that is one complete IPv6 address. That's a little more involved than simply 10.10.10.1, isn't it? But that's one of the advantages. I guess the complexity, if you want to call it that, it's really not as complex as it appears to be, but that level of complexity provides you with amazing functionality. So this is one of the things that really, really is useful whenever you're starting to go through the network and understand where do you go to address problems like a DHCP server being down. We just get rid of DHCP. That's how we corrected the problem. We made it so that you would not need DHCP. And that's a really great way to approach this. It's also automatically determining if a duplicate address might be on the network, and it avoids using those. So another case where it can be very, very useful just to set up an IPv6 network, have the network start running, and now you're able to communicate to the internet even though there isn't a DHCP server, thanks to the functionality of Stateless Address Auto Configuration, or Slack. 47% of you said, yep, it's Slack, all right. That is the correct answer. You got that one absolutely right. A third of you said dynamic routing. Dynamic routing is great for routers knowing where to send information. And if the network design changes, if a link goes down, if something happens, and we now need to bring everything back together into a cohesive network configuration, then we have the routers automatically figure out what the best route might be. Does that dynamically. We don't have to go into the router and say, there's a link down, reconfigure yourself. The router does it without you even asking. That's one of the beauties of a dynamic routing protocol. That convergence can really create a disruption, and having a router that will clean out all of the mess caused by an outage and make it so that you can continue to operate is very useful. But dynamic routing has nothing to do with the IP addresses that are assigned to a local workstation. So in this case, dynamic routing is not what best describes this process. Proxy DHCP, which is a real thing, but is something that is not commonly used in IPv6 and really not commonly used in IPv4 either. But a proxy DHCP, 15% of you chose that one. But in this case, we're not using DHCP of any kind, proxy or otherwise. So it would not be proxy DHCP in this configuration. And an UEI64 transformation can be used in this scenario, but only as part of what we are doing. So maybe that gives you some perspective on how we put all of this together with IPv6. We plug into an IPv6 network and somehow we're able to communicate out to the internet without doing any manual configurations. It just figures it out on its own thanks to stateful address auto configuration, or SLAC, as we generally like to refer to it. SLAC, 47% of you chose SLAC, not a majority, but we'll say the plurality of you got that one absolutely correct. A big plurality of you got that one absolutely correct. I haven't really gone through as many questions as I wanted in this live stream, and we are at the top of the hour, but let's do one more, shall we? I think we shall. I think that would be fun if we get one more into this mix. Next on our list is this question that asks, a user enters their unique corporate email address into a login prompt on a public-facing portal. Which of the following best describes this email address? Is that authentication, identification, accounting, verification, or authorization? Okay, I did say one more question, but I didn't know it would be a tongue twister. A user enters their unique corporate email address into a login prompt on a public-facing portal. Which of the following best describes this email address? Is it authentication, identification, accounting, verification, authorization? Let's see if we can parse this one out. If you think you know the answer, lock in your answer right now by going to professormesser.com/QA. All of the answers that are here, both the question and all of the answers that are here, are part of the official exam objectives. So if you are looking at this list, maybe you know the answer. Maybe you've locked in on what you really think the answer is. Make sure you look at the other answers as well. And if any one of these you feel that maybe I need to learn a little bit more about that topic, make a note so that you can go back and really understand the differences between all of these. I think it would be important to know that. So feel free to make some notes. Feel free to type these into a notepad or something that you've got nearby. Put it in wherever you store your important things so that you'll know what topics might be good to go through. Really, that's a task you can do with the entire exam objective. So another thing to consider as you're talking about exam objectives. See how we do. Let's see how you did with this one. I'll wait a moment or so for some others to lock their answer in. The question again asked, a user enters their unique corporate email address into a login prompt on a public-facing portal. Which of the following best describes this email address? Is that authentication, identification, accounting, verification, or authorization? What is the answer? Let's find out. We'll close our poll right now, and 56% of you say that is identification. 32% say it is authentication. And then we're down to single digits. 8% said authorization, 5% said verification, and again, with the 0% people, accounting. Nobody said accounting. 0% for accounting. What we're really trying to get to in this scenario is to have you think about the process of gaining access and to a particular resource, and then what type of access you have to that resource once you're logged in. And a lot of this is covered as part of AAA. The AAA framework, we are here really talking about the authentication, the authorization, and accounting. That's what the AAA here is referring to. And the US has nothing to do with any type of automobiles. We are really looking at how we get access to a resource and what level of access we have to that resource. The first thing we have to do when we want to gain access to a resource is prove that we are who they are, or prove that we are who we are, I guess would be a better way to say it, would be the appropriate way to say it, be the correct way to say it. Finding out who we are, we have to say who we are to begin with, and typing in, for example, our email address is saying, I am this person. We refer to that as identification. This is usually your username. It's an email address. It's something that is associated with you. And generally speaking, this is not a private thing. A lot of people have your email address. A lot of people have your phone number, and yet we use email addresses and phone numbers as identification to log into many, many different resources. You've probably even done one of those today, logging in with your email address or logging in with your phone number. But you'll notice once you put in your username, your email address, your phone number, It then wants to know more. Oh, are you really that person? Are you really that person who says they're that email address? Are you really on that phone number? And the way that we would prove that we are who we are is by authenticating. The authentication usually involves some type of authentication factor. This might be something you know. It might be somewhere you are. It might be something you have, or any of the other important authentication factors that you've learned in A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus. This is often, we see this all the time. You're logging in with your email. I did this yesterday. I logged in with my email, and then I received an email with a code that I then used to authenticate. The idea being that we don't need a password. We want to prove you're who you are by sending an email. And if you really are in control of your email inbox, you will be able to have access to this code, which you effectively are using as a password to authenticate to that particular resource. So that is exactly what we would use. It's really a combination of an email address, which is the authentication, which is the identification, and then something secretive or something unknown that is the authentication. That is the first A in the AAA framework, is the authentication. The second A is authorization. Once you provide your username, once you identify who you are, and you prove that you are really that person by authenticating, now what do you have access to? Obviously, a different process occurring there. We really want to be able to understand what you might have access. So once you log in, you might have the ability to look at one report and that's it. But if you're management, there might be 10 reports available to you because management has a different level of authorization than you do. And then the last A in the AAA framework is we keep track of this. This is especially important these days so that we can see who logged in. Perhaps even more importantly, not listed on this page, we know who tried to log in and failed. That can create some interesting reports. So if somebody's trying to log in constantly with the wrong password, we'll of course see that as well. That we refer to as accounting. I know it kind of thinks that we should be balancing our checkbook, but accounting in this case means that we have an account or a list of what happened on this network as part of the identification, the authentication, and the authorization. So that's our AAA framework. Those are the key processes that we use to describe getting into and using a resource and all of the different things that we will need to be able to get to that point. And that means that the folks that said our answer is identification, our email address that we were putting in is the identification part. It's not private. It's not something that only we know. We use our email address for a lot of different things. And that means that identification at 56% of you is absolutely correct. That is the answer that we were looking for. And hopefully that gives you a perspective of what we wanted to do or wanted to find with this particular question. And we've already stepped through authentication. We've already stepped through accounting. We've already stepped through authorization already. So we know it's not those particular answers. But there was one we didn't choose in that previous setup. That one we did not choose was the verification. The verification occurs once we provided our identification and we provided our authentication credentials. So we've given our username, we've given our password. We have to be verified. So there's usually a process that is verifying, is it the right email? Is it not the email? That's what we really want to focus on. So hopefully that's given you an idea of where you can drill down on individual topics and settings of the AAA model. You need to understand what happens at each level of that AAA model because you might have to decipher a question like this one where you really do have to understand the nuances between all of those. We do one of these study groups for Network Plus every month, and every time we do one, I go directly to the official exam objectives to be able to understand what topics are going to be used in this month's study group. This is the ultimate list of what you need to know for the exam. CompTIA's official exam objectives give you a list of every single topic that could be presented on an exam. And they're so specific that very rarely do they ever go outside the scope of this list. That means that if you know everything that's in the exam objectives, you effectively know everything you need to know for the exam. This list is provided by CompTIA and it's free. This is a free resource that if you're not taking advantage of, you are doing yourself a significant disservice. Make sure that you grab a copy of the objectives. They can be difficult to find on the CompTIA website. So if you go to professormesser.com/objectives, I have a page that will show you exactly where to go for that. I guess I could just put this up on my screen and show it to you. This is what it looks like on my website, CompTIA's exam objectives. And you can see that I have direct links to the A+, Network+, and Security+ objectives. And I have this little graphic here. You may think, oh, it's just there to show me where it is. Well, it's actually there to show you a little more because there is a red box on the screen about halfway down. This is obviously bigger than one single screenshot. I had to paste things together to get this on my screen. There's a red box that you're looking for that you'll put your email address in. If that red box is not there, I even tell you, you may need to enable cookies, disable pop-up blockers, or remove other filters to see the red box. Maybe try a different browser, try a different configuration. That red box will appear eventually, and that's where you go. For example, if we go to Network+ Objectives, let's see if my links still work. It does take me to Network+, and I'm on this page, and if I scroll down, hey, there's my red box. It's right there between the exam details and the objective summary. So we're not looking for the summary, we're looking for the exact objectives. Put in your email address, click Access Now, and you will be able to gain access to the exam objectives. All of that is available on the CompTIA website, and it is, as I mentioned, absolutely free. You should make sure you get your hands on those objectives. They are very useful. I use them to create all of our videos. I use them to create everything we do because CompTIA sticks to these objectives like glue. So it will behoove you. It is only to your advantage to get your hands on the objectives. Maybe use them as your checklist as you go through your study process. We do one of these Network+ study groups every month. Our next study group is currently scheduled for July the 17th. You can see that we've got A+ on the 7th and the 9th. We have Network+ on the 17th and Security+ on July 22nd, although we've also have a Security+ study group next week. So there's even more coming this in the month of June. We're not quite done yet. We got plenty to go through. These dates can sometimes change, so make sure you always check with the official calendar link for our events. That is where I change them the moment that they change. I change them on the link on your screen, professormesser.com/calendar, or simply use the events link at the top of the Professor Messer website. I also have a duplicate of this information stored on our Discord server. Go to Discord. There is an events channel. If you're on mobile, there's a little icon of a calendar you click on at the top of the server, and that will take you to the events. I update both of those at the same time, so you know you're always looking at the latest information if you go to the link on your screen or you go to the Discord events channel. While we've gone through an hour, maybe a little more, of Q&A today, thanks for hanging with us, but we're not done yet. I want to answer your questions. You can always submit your questions at any time by going to professormesser.com/QA. There's a little tab at the top of the screen. You flip over on that tab, and you can then go and put in all of the questions that you might have for me. We'll go through those in just a moment, so stick around. Don't forget about our Success Bundle and our other study materials on our site. Go to professormesser.com/netsuccess. If you're ever going to take a Network+ exam, we have discounted vouchers on our website, either a one-time use. We also have the newer retake assurance vouchers. If you want something with a little extra insurance, it's also on our site. So you can take the exam twice if you have to. Hopefully you won't have to use it, but it's an option for you at professormesser.com/vouchers. And of course, if you're on social media, so are we. We like to post new pop quiz questions every day for A+, Network+, or Security+. You can find it at professormesser.com/YouTube/X/LinkedIn/Facebook/Instagram. You get the idea. Type in professormesser.com/ the name of the place you'd like to find us, and you will certainly find us there. Well, that brings us to the end of another study group, but stick around. We're not done yet. It's time for our after show where I answer the questions that you ask of me today. So stick around for that. We'll be back in just a few seconds to talk about those. We want to thank you for joining us in this first hour. We could not do this without you. We always have such a good time putting together this content. It's always such fun when I get to show some of these questions and we get to step through all of them. Hopefully you were able to learn a little bit of something today, and we really could not do this without you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Network+ Study Group. Okay, now's the point of the study group where I will take a sip. Boy, I kept all of the incorrect. Let's bring me up. There we go. Hey, everybody. Brought up all the misspellings from last month in there. Oh, we try. Sometimes they sneak in. That's live video for you right there. I think we did pretty well, even with my misspeaking sometimes. There are a lot of moving parts in here. For those of you that aren't here for the pre-show, I mean, there's a lot of screens in front of me, and there's a lot of buttons. There's more buttons over here. You only see some of the buttons because I'm sitting here. There's more buttons. There's a laptop. There's an iPad. There's a lot of moving parts here. So I appreciate you indulging me and putting up with sometimes me going a little bit off center there to get things working. So hopefully that's given you some perspective. But now it's time for our after show. I guess it's time that I should maybe prepare for that. Our after show, there's really not much I need to prepare for, because our after show is the one that allows you to ask questions of me. So instead of me asking all the questions, let's have you ask some questions, shall we? You can submit questions for this at any time. Could have even done it previous to this. It goes into a big queue that I have on my side, so you will not see it on your screen. Once you submit it, trust me, it's in here. I get to go through all of those, and you're welcome to ask me a question about anything you'd like. It can be about CompTIA exams. It could be about Network Plus. It could be about technology in general. It could be about IT careers. It could be about the weather. I don't care. Ask whatever you'd like. We'll sift through them and try to figure out the details here in just a moment. But I now get to go through the Q&A that you have submitted and see what you might want to talk about. Before we get to that, one of the things that I've been working on this side, there's always changes and updates to exams. Thankfully, the Network Plus exam isn't planning to change for a couple of years. So we know that the study materials we're working with on Network Plus are locked in place. So that's a good thing for all of us. We don't have to worry about buying a new book, trying to get new study materials, or hurrying up and trying to get everything studied so you can take the exam before it retires. That's a process coming a year and a half, 2 years from now. So thankfully, that's not where we have to worry about and deal with any of those problems. But we do have to think about where we get all of this information from and how we are working through all of this information. One of the things I've noticed in the industry is that we're sort of leaning away from fact-based content, it seems. One of the things that I really would implore you to focus on is getting your study materials from a trusted source. I've seen so many study materials recently that have been made through non-human means that are simply inaccurate and misleading. And I see an uptick in this because people send me emails that say, here's a question and answer that didn't seem right. Does this seem right to you? And inevitably, it's not right. And I guess that's a good part of your study process. If you can identify bad questions, then you're probably finding out. Somebody in the chat room said, you mean like AI? AI is certainly a source of those, but not the exclusive source of those. There are plenty of bad questions written by humans. So I'm not in any way saying AI is bad. I'm also saying humans are bad. I guess if we want to put it that way, trusted sources are really important when you're dealing with something like an industry certification exam. Everything has to be 100% accurate. Otherwise, you're learning exactly the wrong thing. So there's where I would really focus. And if anything, it sort of proves to us that when we start talking about AI, there are advantages to AI. There are also some disadvantages to AI. I think we can all agree there's a balance there. Make sure you're putting the balance where it needs to be, especially when you're studying for your certification exams. In the chat room, we have a number of questions that have come through. So let's go through what some of these might be. I'm going to let's quickly start with a question that actually came from the chat. I don't often go to the chat to do this, but it is a question that comes up quite a bit. And there were a number of questions that came up in the for certification renewal in the questions that you have submitted. So I'll do this one so we can kind of see it. This is from Jay, who says, can Network Plus CEUs be applied to a Security Plus certification renewal? And as an adjunct to that particular question, I will add to that a question that came in through the chat on how can I update my CompTIA Security Plus certificate? So it's sort of a bigger question. I need to first update a cert, in this case, Security Plus, but I'll tell you how you can update any cert. And then more specifically, can the CEUs that we are using here in our Network Plus be applied to a Security Plus certification renewal? To find the answer to all of these, not surprisingly, we need to go to the CompTIA website. The challenge you will find if you go to the CompTIA website is just figuring out where it is. And this is probably the hardest part of the entire thing, is where do they put the renewal stuff? It's not under Explore Careers. It's not under certification. It's not under enterprise or government or partner or academic or resources. That sounds right. Let's click on that. And the resources that are here, we click, we scroll. One of the things that's in this list under product resources is continuing education. Continuing education allows us to understand all of our renewal options to keep our certification current. Let's learn more, shall we? The certification under continuing education steps through, there's a lot of content here, admittedly. So there's a lot to read through. I really do recommend you read through it, though. It's not awful. It's not a bad read, but there's a lot to deal with. They do explain why it would be important to renew. And this may be self-explanatory. You've got a certification. You worked hard for this certification. Other people in the industry like that you have this certification. So renewing it is just a good idea. So I'm going to pass over why you need to renew. We've already decided we want to renew. Now, how do we do it? And step one is to learn about the renewal process. And they tell you that they give you an overview of the process. They give you some ideas about how to renew. They also talk about the fees and the CEUs that you would use to make that happen. Where I think we're going to focus today is on the next process, which is choosing your renewal path. And there are really two different ways to do this. There, you can either renew with one single thing that renews everything, or there are multiple tasks that you can do, and you can combine those together, and as a lump sum, they will renew your certification. I have a video that effectively takes all of this information from the CompTIA website and consolidates it down to one single video. It's in the YouTube video description of this video, and it is how to renew your A+, Network Plus, or Security Plus certification in just a few hours. And I'm really mostly talking about the CertMaster CE as part of that. That's what does it in just a few hours. But I also go through, for example, all of these single activities. So CertMaster CE, higher level CompTIA certs, non-CompTIA IT industry certifications, or a CompTIA certification exam. That's not really renewal, is it? If you just take the exam again, a newer version of the exam, that's not really renewing, is it? I guess technically it is. That's the worst possible way to renew. Just take the exam again. There are much easier ways to renew. I think CertMaster CE is the one most people use these days. It's a single thing you can do. You're able to renew in a day, less than a day in many cases. And it's something that you do all online. You submit it and you're renewed. I've had people come into my Discord chat and they say, my certification is expiring tomorrow. What can I do right now to renew? Okay, well, we can't go back in time and give us more time. So really your only choice, assuming you haven't done anything else in the last 3 years since you earned that certification to renew, CertMaster CE allows you to do that. And that's what we recommended to that person. They went off. They came back the next day to the chat and said, thanks for the recommendation. I did the CertMaster CE. I finished it. I submitted it, and I renewed for another 3 years. So there's a success story for you of somebody that was able to use CertMaster CE at the last possible moment to renew their certification. But you don't have to use CertMaster CE. You can earn a higher level certification. So in the chat room, someone was saying, I need to renew my Security Plus. How do I do that? Well, assuming CertMaster CE would apply to you, that's one thing you can do. Let's go through this list for certification. If we go through what a renewal fully renews, we need to find fully renews for Security Plus. So Security Plus can be fully renewed by taking Security X, the Security X certification. So where else is Security Plus? This is not the best form if we have to kind of manually go through it. Security Plus is also renewed by CISA Plus. I think they meant to put CISA Plus over here. CISA Plus fully renews Security Plus, along with other things. We also have, what else can renew Security Plus? Anything else? We scroll. That's it. So if you wanted to use CompTIA exams to renew Security Plus, you could take Security X and pass it. You could take CISA Plus and pass it, and that's it. That's all you do. I didn't see any others. I don't think any of you saw that either. That was it. So that may not be the easiest way to renew your certification. What about other things you can do that are not CompTIA certs? There's a lot you could take. We're going to click on Security Plus. Click. So you could take certifications from Amazon, Broadcom, Checkpoint, Cisco, EC Council, Fortinet, GIAC, ISACA, ISC Squared, Juniper, Microsoft, Offense, et cetera, et cetera. And you could take those and they'll give you a certain number of CEUs that would allow you to renew your certification. So if during this 3-year period, you've already taken one of these, maybe you got a Palo Alto Networks firewall, you went and took the Palo Alto Networks Certified Security Automation Engineer. I had this one, the Palo Alto Networks. I guess technically I still do because I don't think they retire them. They don't take them away from you, but I have the Palo Alto Networks Certified Network Security Administrator certification. I have multiples of those, and they give you 50 CEUs. That's enough to renew your Security Plus. So you might have already done one of these. You simply need to submit your proof that you've taken one of these and earned it. And maybe that's something that can help you as you get into renewing Security Plus and you find that any of the other ones don't work. Lastly, other things you can do are to collect CEUs. And I don't think they're in this list because this is single activity. Collecting CEUs would be multiple activities. Multiple activities would be things like training and higher education, IT industry participation. For example, if you teach a class, you get a certain number of CEUs. If you create instructional materials, you get a certain number of CEUs. If you go to let's go to another one. If you go to training and higher education, for example, you're in a webinar like this one, you attend a live webinar and you're taking Security Plus, which is over here, I guess, Security Plus, you can earn up to 10 CEUs for Security Plus just by watching webinars. Notice that's a lot less than the 50 CEUs you need to actually renew your certification. That's why they mentioned that you would have to do multiple things to be able to renew your certification. And that's just an example of them. All of these that are in here. Completing a college course. Somebody said, what about getting a degree? You just complete a single course. You get 50 CEUs. So forget just getting a college degree. Doesn't even take that. You just take one course. As long as, and I'll bring this up, I think they have right here at the bottom, the relevance, and this goes to the question that was asked earlier by Jay. The relevance is at least 50% of the course content must relate to one or more of the exam objectives for the certification that you're renewing. That's a big group of things that we can look at, because if you look at the Network Plus exam objectives, and I think I do have a set of the exam objectives here somewhere. Let's bring it up. Let's bring up the exam objectives and give you a perspective of that. Got it right here. Click, click, click. Lightning fast. So if we go to the exam objectives, here they are for the N10-009. Anything that's in this list, if your course, if 50% of the things that you took in that course, in that seminar, in that thing, happen to match any one of these bullets, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bullets here. If they happen to match, that's a match. That's a good CEU. That means you could take a course in cybersecurity, and if any part of that course in cybersecurity happens to touch on any of the network security things that are here, if that course touches on audits and regulatory compliance, if it talks about physical security, if it talks about deception technologies, that's a good CEU. You can use that one. So you could do events like this online, would be a webinar, courses that you would take. All of these individual things that you can do are listed on the CompTIA website. You'll have to go over there to those resources to find out if the things you're doing could be used as justification for renewal. I bet they could be. So that would be another good place to go to get more and more information about what you can submit as a CEU. It's a place to go, and I think that's probably the best way. From going to these events, it is complete a training course that gets you some CEUs, attending a live webinar gets you some CEUs, attending a conference gets you some CEUs, completing a college course does, or completing an American Council of Education and ACE course. I have no idea what those are. It sounds more of a niche thing. So those are the ones that are these training and higher education things that you can do. Apparently podcasts do not apply here, so not something you can use. And in fact, they've sort of changed the webinar piece to be live webinar, but that doesn't necessarily match what they are accepting these days either. So they may be updating these pages at some point soon to learn more about that part of it. So hopefully that's given you a perspective, both folks in the chat room that asked about certification and Jay that submitted that question about certification. Hopefully that's given you a perspective as well. Let's keep going through the list of questions you have. And if you'd like to submit a question, you can do that at any time by going to professormesser.com/QA. Simply use that link on your screen to go to that question. Let's keep going through this list of things. This is a common question, and to be fair, it's a valid question, but I think the answer is one that's sort of answering itself these days. What do you think about AI taking over tech jobs in the next 10 to 15 years? That point of view scares me from even continuing my tech career. I want to get a job in this stuff. I've loved studied for 2 years, recently stopped over AI. Please help. Well, I think we can pretty much tell at this point the pipe dreams that were provided to us about the future and AI did not really come to fruition. AI certainly has its advantages. It certainly becomes a valuable tool in certain circumstances. But from the perspective of people that are putting together complex networks, designing, supporting, and troubleshooting them, there hasn't been much of an effect other than maybe providing us with another way to access information that we already didn't know about. It's kind of the new Google from that perspective. There are certainly places where AI has a much more visible and a tangible impact. I think about our brethren over on the computer science side that are doing programming, or that I would say used to be doing programming. Certainly AI has had a dramatic impact in those careers. But for the people in information technology, we've not seen that drastic embedding of AI that would take away jobs from us. We are still doing the same jobs. We're still providing the same functions. We're still doing the same troubleshooting. We're still doing exactly what we did before, maybe with some additional tools available, and some of those tools come from AI. But as we've also seen, a lot of the information that's provided to us from an AI perspective isn't always 100% accurate, which actually makes it more difficult to design and implement and troubleshoot networks. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done if they ever plan on getting rid of people doing what we do in the world of networking. So I think that the media, and I would say the AI companies, would like us to believe that they are taking over the world. But as it turns out, it isn't. We've kind of seen that at this point. Did not actually come to fruition, these crazy stories they had about what AI was going to do for us. We will certainly see some very powerful uses of AI when it comes to big data. That's where AI excels. That's where the true AI excels, being able to correlate and find information, a tiny little digital needle in an enormous virtual haystack. That is exactly where AI excels. If you're in the world of IT security, AI is extremely valuable at going through those mountains of log files and focusing in on things that are very important for you to know about, things that humans would certainly never be able to do. We were never able to do it. We still are not able to do it. And now we have a new tool that allows us to do that. So as many people will say, and you will see this, AI is really a tool, yet another tool that we will use to do the jobs that we have always done. But it's not currently getting rid of anyone's job. No, we don't really see that happening at all. So thankfully, it kind of worked out. I didn't really expect it to from the very beginning, knowing what we were seeing with AI. But if you want to do some of on the consumer side, we've seen a few things that can help us create graphics better or create music easier, but not really to design implement or fix networks, at least not yet. So they have a lot more work to do if they are ever going to get to that point. So don't worry about AI taking over the world and you not having a job and not being able to do anything in technology. There will always be something to do in technology. It's one of the beauties of doing this. You could think we've already been through this a number of times in our industry. I think about virtualization. Virtualization was an enormous disruption to our industry. Imagine if you were a company that made physical servers, and there were a lot of physical server companies out there. When you wanted to put a database server up, you would need to buy a computer and put it in a rack, and that would be your database server. Oh, you need a web server as well? All right, we need to buy a computer, put it in the rack. There's our web server. Great. Oh, you need a server for files? Okay, we get another server. We put it in the rack. Now we got a server for files. We have 3 separate physical devices all doing different things. Then virtualization came along. Virtualization was not a new technology either, just like AI is not a new technology. Virtualization we used for years back in the days of mainframes. So now we're doing exactly the same type of virtualization, except we're doing it on a PC platform. So now instead of buying 3 servers, I buy 1 server, maybe a souped up server just a little bit, and I put all 3 of those virtual devices into that one physical device. Did that change the industry? Changed it dramatically, enabled cloud computing, but it did have an effect on the companies that made servers. So there's a really good example of where you would see a change to the industry, but it didn't change the way we support our technology. We still have to support all those operating systems. We still have to manage and design all those operating systems. We still have to troubleshoot all those operating systems and how they all connect to each other. So if anything else, somebody has to fix the AI. That's going to be you. Somebody has to fix the network. That's going to be you. Somebody has to continue to fix these horribly written applications, especially now that humans aren't writing them. Can you guess what's going to happen to the quality of applications when it's not a human writing the app? I think we're already seeing the answer for that. For those of you that have seen some of these new apps that have come out, not very impressive. So you're going to be spending a lot of time troubleshooting these applications as well. What better place to be? If anything, AI is sort of making the world and the industry not as smart. We're sort of dumbing ourselves down a little bit in many different areas. That's an opportunity. That's a great place to be, because if that's going to make us not as smart, maybe we can be smarter ourselves to fix it. Maybe we're the ones that come in to actually fix the problem. Somebody who knows what's going on. I was doing something, I had a car. I was doing some traveling this past week. I had scheduled a car to pick me up at the airport. The car was not there. I got on the website of the place that provided me the car, and I told the AI, the bot, it said, this is an AI. Talk to the AI. The AI will help you. The AI is great, and the AI is everything. I said, well, my car is not here. And they said, well, are you wanting to cancel your reservation? If you cancel, you will still have to pay the fee. To which I replied, but my driver is not here. And it said, your cancellation is now complete. We have now charged you for this. The AI it didn't know what to do. So we're still in that very early stages of trying to create a platform that does anything. I've seen a number of companies already that have put an AI front end in place for their customer support. It's already gone. They've already taken it off their website because it simply wasn't working the way they wanted. So I think that's a really good example of nuance and of understanding where AI works best and perhaps even where AI works worst. We still have a lot more work to do there, and now's the time to start working on it. You're the person to get in there and make that happen. Certainly don't start studying technology because they've created yet another one. This is not the last time there will be disruption in our industry. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. I've had our entire industry. We have created public companies making billions of dollars. I'm assuming billions. Did 4 Systems, did they have what was the revenue? What was the annual revenue of 4 Systems back in the day? 4 Systems was a company that at one point was making $500 million, close to $500 million in a year, and they were making ATM networking technology, not automatic teller machines, This was a networking technology that was going to change the world. We were going to deploy it everywhere. It was going to replace Ethernet. It was going to replace all networking types with an ATM, asynchronous transfer mode. That's what that networking type was. Public company, 4 Systems. 4 Systems, I think, got bought, didn't they? Eventually. So they built this company and had enormous money and had incredible growth. And how much ATM is now configured in our networks today? 0. So these trends and even popularity and things come and go in our industry all the time. We see it constantly. And this is another example of that, where we will see a lot of people misunderstand and not know what they're getting into. They follow the hype, they get into it, and they realize it doesn't do what they want. It kind of falls out of interest. We're sort of seeing that now in the world of hiring. A lot of companies got rid of people so they could support their AI efforts. And now that the AI efforts are not working very well, they're hiring people again. So the ebbs and flows of technology are at times confusing, at times scary, especially when you're trying to get a career together and maintain a career in our industry, but it's nothing new. And you will, at some point in your career down the road, after having been through a few of these, go, oh, here's another one. Yeah, it's more of the same. We're kind of used to it at this point. So sometimes I seem nonchalant when it comes to AI, and that nonchalantness is not something that I'm just making up. It's that I've seen this before, and I'm not worried about it at all. We will use this as a tool. We'll take what's good from it. We're like the Borg. We will take what's good from AI, and we will throw everything else out. And that's sort of happening now. We're seeing that go away. If you invested in AI, I really wish you the best. Good luck with that one. That would be my biggest concern right now, is where that's going to go. I think short term is probably a good place to be for those AI stocks. We'll see where it goes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will all be very, very profitable and successful. Okay, next question. Let's keep going through the list. A lot of video game questions in here. Quickly, I was not an EverQuest player. I was a WoW player back in original vanilla WoW back in the day. Not a lot of gaming going on in my world right now. There's a lot happening right now to make content. I try to get an hour in a day, I guess. That's sort of where we go. World of Warcraft was a lot of fun when I had a lot of time. Now that we have all this, we have A+, we have Network+, we have Security+, we have study groups, we have daily pop quiz questions. I'm just creating content all the time. So I get my hour or two in at night sometimes. But a lot of that is now whatever I can do, whenever I can catch it. That's what I'm doing. But never got into EverQuest, but it looked great. You know, if you're on the World of Warcraft side, you look at the other EverQuest, like maybe I should be over there. And if you're on EverQuest, you're thinking maybe I should be over there. It's always grass is greener, isn't it? Well, I'm still gaming. I love playing games. Those are a lot of fun. It kind of gives you a chance to wind down at the end of the day. That's how I tend to use them. So if you're on, right now I'm sort of flipping between Diablo 4. I like a good action RPG type. Diablo 4 is good. Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2 are good. But I also like sort of a looter shooter kind of thing. So even Division 2, I've still got that on my list. I still go in there every so often. So you never know. It's always something. I don't do the quick type of games where you need, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yes, dexterity. Yes. So I can't compete with the 10-year-olds. They're just there. They are so far ahead of me. So we're not even doing that. We're not even going that direction for those things. Let's find some more questions you've submitted. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, so let's squeeze in some more instead of me just talking about gaming. We could talk about that all day. That's always a lot of fun. Let's go through. Okay, let's talk about, you've now taken Network Plus. You're done with Network. You passed it. You're good. There's no more Network Plus in your world. Now, what do we do? And that's the question from Arvin, who says, I'm struggling to know what certification to go next after Network Plus. Would you recommend Security Plus, CCNP, start cloud certs, like start some cloud certifications such as AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or any other recommendations? And my answer is, yeah, sure. Those sound good. The challenge when you're thinking about what your next cert will be or what your path will be to whatever you're trying to get to is you have to know where you're going. I don't know where you're going. So the answer to this question, though, is you need to put together a strategy for yourself. What do you need to do to get to that point? So the first thing you have to do is figure out where that point is. Do you want to be in networking? Do you want to work in cloud technologies? Do you want to do something with AI? Do you want to build out and design large-scale networks? Do you want to do troubleshooting? Do you want to work with operating systems? Do you want to work with databases? It's technology. It can go in many different directions. So all of those have a different path to get to where you want to be. For me, I loved networking. And I didn't know I was getting to, in fact, where I ended up, or my last sort of corporate job was really cybersecurity. I was working for a next generation firewall company. But I thought along the way, I never thought that that's where I would end up. You always figure out what the next step is going to be. I always hated that question in an interview where somebody says, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'm in technology. I don't know what I'm doing next year. The world is moving under my feet faster than I can run. So I have to constantly keep learning these newer technologies just to stay ahead, just to keep my head above water. So where I'm going to be in 5 years, how can I realistically know what the answer is? Well, I guess the long-term answer is it's impossible to know where we're going to be in 5 years. Just in the last 5 years, we've seen changes in the cloud. We've seen changes with AI. We've seen changes with programming. We've seen changes with companies that appear and gone tomorrow. 5 years ago, we would have never predicted that, and now here we are. My goal in 5 years is just to maintain that level of knowledge and that level of learning and be able to participate with those new technologies so that I can learn those and keep this party going, keep this process moving. That is the real challenge we have when we start looking at it. So we want to know what certification to go to next. My answer is going to turn this around and say, what do you want to do? Are you interested in getting into networking? Do you like the cloud thing? Do you like operating systems? Maybe you're a fan of Linux. Maybe you're a fan of Windows. Maybe you want to learn more about Active Directory. Maybe you want to know more about wide area networks. Maybe you want to work at a network provider. There's a lot of different options there. And the different answers to that question will help you determine where you go next with these certifications or just with your learning in general. So if you want to get into large-scale networking, do more networking certs. Go over to the Cisco side, get some of those Cisco certifications. You want to do cloud? Well, let's pick a cloud technology. Let's get some Amazon certs. Let's get some Microsoft Azure certs. You want to do cybersecurity? Maybe Security Plus and some of the other industry security certifications would make sense. You tend to lean into the things that interest you in technology. And we have a flexibility in our IT world of being able to do that. Not all industries have that level of flexibility. You are in the right place because now you can really redesign your career at a moment's notice. I can't imagine still doing field service technician, which is where I started off right out of college. I was a field service tech. Can only do that for a certain amount of time. And I thought, what do I want to do next? I'd love to be able to take this knowledge that I've gained in field service and go work as workstation administration. Make sure that people are able to use their local computers, they're able to use their laptops and their tablets and their phones to be able to accomplish whatever tasks they have available to them. So I wanted to learn about Windows. I wanted to learn about Linux. I wanted to learn about Mac OS. I wanted to learn everything about the hardware of those systems. What about the phone operating systems? What about tablets? What about managing all of those? What about certificates? What about securing them? So that's a big pile of knowledge. That's a lot. Somebody says, I just want to be a workstation tech. There's a lot that comes along with that and a lot of knowledge you need to know and a lot of knowledge you don't currently have. There you go. There's your next foray. There's the next set of things you need to learn. There's the next set of home lab things you can work on, all dealing with Linux or Windows or Active Directory or with the hardware or with phone operating systems or with MDMs or with whatever that happens to be that would get you to that point. So I can't answer a question about what do I do next because I don't know what you want to do next. Also, I will tell you that whatever you choose isn't locked in stone. You're not chiseling this into some granite, and that's all I'm going to be able to do for the rest of my career. If that was the case, I would have never been able to move up into a role in cybersecurity. I'd still be back doing field service work. We are always able to make a change. So that's what I mean by sort of leaning into one of those different technologies is once you become more of an expert in workstation administration, in Active Directory, in cloud technologies, in AI technology, or whatever it happens to be, once you have an expertise in that area, you will start to see that more opportunities become available to you in that area. Because if you're smart in that particular role, companies will want to hire you for that role. And maybe you get hired at a junior role, you move up to be more of a senior role, and then you go to the next thing. And that's what happened with me. I started with field service technicians, driving around, fixing people's printers and adding memory to systems and upgrading hard drives. And I just have to go to their desk and make that happen. Then I moved into more of a corporate help desk, different set of knowledges that I need to know, a different set of applications I need to learn, a different field and set of networks I need to do. So that's where I was. That moved me into the world of networking and understanding what happens at the protocol level. Once I learned the network, a whole nother set of jobs opened up for me and potentials. And I ended up going to a company that made protocol analysis tools and network management functions and reporting capabilities along with security tools. And that's what led me into the world of cybersecurity. So all of these were some of these things I wanted to do. Some of these things were just opportunities that suddenly fell out of the sky that I was perfect for based on the things that I had done up to that point. So you will need to start somewhere, get that first job in technology, and then start leaning into what you think is fun to do. This will change through the years. You will never be stuck doing any one thing in the world of technology. That's one of the great benefits of this particular world, is that you can do one thing on one job and then suddenly shift over to a different set of technologies, and now that's what you're working on. This happens all the time. And 5 years from now, there will be something else. 10 years from now, there'll be something else. We keep evolving, we keep changing, we keep creating new technologies, new things keep coming down the line, and you will be there to decide maybe that's a place you should go. Maybe you should learn more about those things and lean into those a little bit and start learning more about that, and then you have a job working in that area. That seems to be a very common theme in our information technology world, but it's about options. I worked with a lot of people that were in some of these jobs for an extended period of time. I'd meet somebody that was working in network administration and they'd been there 10 years. And I said, why are you here 10 years? It's very unusual. Usually we have kind of a 3 or 4 year ramp, and then we move to some other job, or we move up to some other job, or we go into management, or we go into security, or we change direction, or whatever it is, we decide that we want to do something else. And he said, I just love doing this. This is what I like. It's with a company I like. They give me a lot of autonomy. I'm able to set my own hours. I have things and responsibilities at home that are important to me, and they give me a way to shift my schedule around for those responsibilities. I don't see any reason to leave. I thought that's the value of information technology. That's one of the important considerations when you get into this particular vertical, this particular field of work, is that it does give you options that, quite honestly, you don't have if you worked in another line of work. For example, if you were a nurse and you worked as a nurse, there's a certain number of nursing jobs available, but at some point you kind of have to go into management. You don't have a ton of different medical jobs you can consider. Oh, I'm a nurse now, but now I want to kind of lean into the radiology side. Now I want to kind of lean into the blood testing side. Now I want to go into more of MRI. You don't have a lot of options for that because they are so different and require additional learning and training to get there that's above and beyond the type of learning we need in the world of technology. So same thing for probably even more so for doctors. Once you become a podiatrist, you're a podiatrist your entire career. You can't be a podiatrist in a few years in thinking, I really like eyes. Let's do something with eyes. Nope, you're a podiatrist. You're doing that now, unless you now want to go back to medical school and focus on the eyeball. That's not exactly a great thing either. and you don't see doctors doing that. It takes so much just to get to that point. Not so with IT. We can do whatever we'd like, whenever we'd like. And I think that's a huge benefit and something that drives me when I'm putting together the next Security Plus course, when I'm building out this Network Plus content for our live stream today. That's what motivates me, knowing that we're able to use this content to level up in our world of security or our world of technology. So maybe I want to level up to get into security. Maybe I want to level up to get into the world of large-scale network administration or whatever it happens to be. This is our opportunity to build our knowledge base so that we have more options in the future. You have to invest in yourself to get to that point. I think a lot of people want to come out of school or they want to come out of their training for technology and they want to say, okay, I want to work from home and I want to only work during the week and during the daylight hours. That's it. Well, not quite yet. You got a little more foundation you need to build. You need to level up a couple more times before that is even an option for you. Those jobs are out there and the flexibility is there and you get to make that decision, but you have to know more than what you know now. The more you know, the more of a foundation you build, the more opportunities and flexibility that will be available to you. So there is a little bit of work that takes place. It's fun work. It's different work every day. And as I like to say, we call it work. It's not real work, is it? You're not outside in the heat. You're not digging a hole. It's not physical work. It's not like you're working, you're not in construction. This is you're using your brain to work, and it's a very different approach, and it's a lot of fun. It's a job that really works best for people that love to solve a puzzle. And at least that's the way I tend to approach a lot of these things that come to me in the world of IT. Here's a problem that we have. How do we fix it? Oh, that's interesting. Let's dive in and see what's going on. Let's understand the problem. Let's figure out and test some things. Let's see if it fixed it. Oh, it didn't fix it. Let's do something else. Let's see if that fixed it. Oh, that one fixed it. We solved the problem. There's nothing more gratifying to a problem solver than to go through that entire process. And the harder the problem, the more satisfying the result happens to be. You know, sometimes we get the easy ones. Oh, your password's okay, we'll do a password reset. Oh, the video went out, we'll replace your video card. Okay, those are easy peasy. I got those. But give me something that only happens every once in a while. It's a massive outage. It costs money to the company. That's where I want to be. I want to go right there and solve those kind of problems. Put me in the middle of the disaster. And I want to somehow piece everything together and then come up with a solution that gets us out of that disaster mode. That's where IT excels. And that's where you will begin to learn even more, even faster when you finally get to that point. IT, it is a great equalizer because we all start at the same level with IT. None of us know anything about this technology starting out. And regardless of who you are, where you've been, what you've done, your age, your nationality, your race, your creed, your religion, doesn't matter. Because we're all sort of moving forward in the world of technology, and everybody has the same opportunity for that. I love that part about our industry, and it's given me years of the ability to learn, to support myself, to support my family, and ultimately to do even more of that with you. And I think if I can just give you a little piece of that, I think I'm doing the right thing to move you forward in your career. Hopefully it's something that we can work with and work through to be able to give you that, and then you can run with it and figure out what the next steps are going to be in your career to give yourself the same type of flexibility and options. And that's really all about the knowledge that you have. Well, I know we've hit kind of the top of the hour. I think that's probably a good place to sort of to move down here and get to the end of what we were doing today. But we had a good day. We started working through our Q&A in the first hour. Thank you so much for joining us in the main part of the study group. We always have interesting questions, interesting answers, and sometimes you surprise me quite a bit with the things that you answer in those. So thank you for joining us for that. And even more so, I think the questions you provide in our after show, that also gives me a chance to find out the things that are top of mind for you and maybe talk about them and kind of discuss them in a way that maybe is different than where you might get somewhere else. And that gives me a chance to kind of think through things as well. hopefully it's giving you some things to think about too. If you have questions about any of the others, we do one of these study groups all the time. You can always check our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar. I think the next one we have is next week. We have our Security Plus study group. So if you like the Network Plus study group and you know that security is right around the corner, that might be another great study group to attend. Make sure you check that out. You can always find it at professormesser.com/calendar. Well, I think that brings us to the end of another study group. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everybody.